Kevin Hunter on the Business Forum Show. My guests in studio with me, Dia Johnson and Mike Niznik from Carlson Advisors. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, Dia, you mentioned here that you've been in accounting for 20 plus years and counting. So, what turned you on about accounting, and what made you decide to get involved? Because a lot of people talk about the accountants as the people sit in these little dark rooms and add up numbers and spreadsheets and count beans. So, what's had you doing this for 20 plus years?
Sure. Well, I started out actually wanting to be an elementary school teacher, and my mom made me take an accounting class in high school. Everything clicked for me. I had a great instructor, so I ended up taking that all the way through college. Didn't change my major, stayed with one major. Got out, and I've been in public accounting ever since. And the fun part about that is I'm actually teaching a lot of my clients right now, so I'm still doing what I knew I wanted to do, and that is teaching.
Mm-hmm. Well, very nice. How about you, Mike?
Actually, quite similar. I had a high school bookkeeping class, and for whatever reason, I got kind of turned on by it, and I stuck with it through college. Didn't change, and I've been with it. You know, that's the only accounting I've ever done is public accounting. For me, it's a lot about the client relationships, and I never dreamed that my clients would become my friends, and I'd be so involved in them, and that's really what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. So. And what about, I'm sure over the last 20 years, both of you have had to see a ton of things change with regard to tax implications, regulations, whatever, as they impact business. So, Mike, I'll start with you. What have you seen in terms of big changes to business?
Well, it's just the number of changes. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, we'd get a tax law maybe once every 3 or 4 years that would have some impact. Now there's more than one a year. I mean, and it's difficult to keep up with that. Fortunately, we've got a lot of resources at Carlson Advisors. We're subscribed to a lot of different services, so we're getting daily emails, watching court cases, watching the changes, watching what's going on in Congress. That to me is the biggest change. Watching, at one point high individual taxes, where now individual taxes are lower than corporate taxes, and most corporations don't pay tax. Most of them will be flow-through type entities where the tax is paid at the individual level.
Mm-hmm. So. How about you, Dia?
Well, I've seen a lot of companies from startup get larger and go through some of those growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
The industry out there is a little bit different. Banks are a little tighter, so we're a little more involved. Rather than just with taxes and financial statements, now we're involved with helping our clients manage some of those transitions and manage their business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest thing I've seen as far as what we're doing as a profession with our clients.
For some organizations that don't have good accounting support in their organization, and this could be even true of larger companies who are doing a lot of stuff in-house, but one of the things that I hear about from business people, and it probably happens way too often, but they come to a point in their business where they're needing some financing, they're needing some bank help, and so they go to the bank to go talk to them about a loan, and of course they don't have the right paperwork and whatnot that the bank is looking for. So talk about that, and how big of a deal is it in taking an organization who really hasn't done a good job in that regard, and what do you have to do to get them prepared so they're actually, a bank is interested in talking to them based on the bookkeeping and the paperwork they're generating?
Sure. Well, you put together a package, and the package has to have enough information for the bank to feel comfortable that they're creditworthy,
mm-hmm.
That they have the cash flow,
mm-hmm.
And that they have collateral. So those three things are what they're looking at. And when we help a client, it's our job to put that information into a story. We ask them to write up information about their history, where they're going, what their vision is, and then we put the numbers in there too, of course, the personal numbers and also the company numbers. It helps if they have a good relationship with their bank.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in our world, it's a referral world, so we have lots of referral sources that we know, bankers.
Sure.
So we can bring some of that credibility if we're coming into one of our current bankers
mm-hmm.
to help them get that financing.
Go ahead.
The bank oftentimes will ask for a certain type of financial statement. The lowest level would be a compilation. The highest level being audit, depending on the size of the company, depending on the size of the loan. So it might go beyond the bookkeeping, where they may want us involved to prepare such a financial statement that's kind of independently prepared, that they can look at, not just the QuickBooks or the internal financial statements of the company.
Mm-hmm. A lot of well-known business experts have made the comment that there's a 3 to 5% chance that the change any organization will need, or that the things they need to do to move ahead in today's economy, that there's a 3 to 5% chance that that change will come from inside their organization. So without either using good consultants like yourself in the accounting area, or whether it's business coaching or attorney legal help and whatnot, they're going to need people from the outside to help them. Having said that, though, there's plenty of people out there on the accounting side that simply are just bookkeepers. And one of the things that you mentioned, Dia, was talking about educating your clients, which is a totally different breed of accountants than somebody who's just simply doing your books. I had, many years ago when I had a small business in Michigan, I had an accountant that was doing books for me too. And I had to almost on a monthly basis go back and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of information. I'm looking for that type of information. And, his response back to me always was, well, you need to tell me what you need, and then I'll get you what I need. And so later, as I became a little bit smarter about that whole process, I realized what a poor job he was actually doing for me. But I want you to visit about the things that you do to educate your clients, in addition to just simply doing what people commonly call bookkeeping, because having a good accounting firm assisting and representing your organization is really important today, where years ago maybe it didn't matter all that much. But talk about that, Dia.
Sure. One of the things that I do with my clients is I meet with them, depending upon the complexity of their business. Usually it's quarterly, and we have lunch. It's informal. I ask how things are going. There's maybe key things that we're watching in the business, so we always bring those things back up again. And that's the opportunity for them to tell me something new that's happening to them, to get some advice. And it's also a time to build that relationship, to find out more about who they are and what they want out of their business, and personally also. So that's the approach I take, is that I'm touching the client all year long. And internally, we do a lot of staying on top of the changes. We try to, we have a blog, so we try to send that out. We have a newsletter that we send out when there's something important to our clients. We try to put it in layman's terms so it isn't too techy. So we're always trying to stay in front of the client before they find out from someone else what's going on, and,
sure.
and then they're in trouble.
Sure. How do you, when you mentioned that there's, and Mike, I believe you touched on this, that in the 80s to 90s there was a tax law once, maybe every 3 years. Now it's 1 to 2 times a year. How do you get that kind of information out to people? Do you try to get in contact with everybody and have a seminar type thing, or how do you communicate this information as far as the changes that it represents to business?
Mostly we try to do that by a kind of an updated newsletter. Fortunately, our services actually make that real easy on us. They'll almost give you a hand-fed newsletter, and we just edit it accordingly. We've tried seminars, things like that, and clients don't seem to want to come to that. They just want us to know. They don't want to necessarily know it all either. They just expect us to know it and to take care of it for them.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. They don't expect to become the experts on it. They just want to rely on you for good advice as to how it impacts their business. Well, that makes sense. So what do you see coming as far as any significant things that business people should be aware of today? Anything new that they should know?
It's an ever-changing world. I mean, and especially with budget issues and so on. I mean, there's a lot of talk now in the state. And I'm finding sales tax audits, for example, and I think our Department of Revenue in the state of Minnesota is geared up to audit just about everybody, and it's interesting. I think even some of us, like our firm, was actually audited by the Minnesota Department of Revenue, and we're a service-provided organization. We don't pay sales tax, so they're trying to uncover just about every rock that they can to find money. So.
I suppose with money being tight everywhere, they're trying to turn over every rock they possibly can. Are you experiencing that as well, Dia?
Yes, the both the state and the federal, I think, are much more aggressive. They're looking at things a little more carefully.
Mm-hmm.
I filed a tax return that in Minnesota that had research and development credits on it, and my clients haven't received their refunds yet, and we filed them on time. And we call the Minnesota Department of Revenue, and they say, well, we're just looking at the R&D credit. So they're just looking over everything a little more carefully. So everything has to be documented a little better up front and on our end.
And back when we used to experience audited, everything started with the federal. And the state would follow up, but now the state is the aggressor as compared to the federal. So.
Sure. So roles have kind of changed there.
Definitely.
Kevin Hunter on the Business Forum Show. My guests are Dia Johnson and Mike Niznik from Carlson Advisors. You can find them on the web at carlson-advisors.com. Again, that's carlson-advisors.com. You can also contact the office at 763-535-8150. Again, 763-535-8150. Kevin Hunter on the Business Forum Show. My guest is Dia Johnson and Mike Niznik from Carlson Advisors. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.